So I have about 4 or 5 application points that I want to address, but they're all going to be undergirded for me by one sort of general underlying operating principle that for me was the biggest help when I think about like settling into this role, serving well within the function of my worship ministry, that whole thing. If I had to put words around it, it would be this: be about people over projects. Be about people over projects. So that principle, for me anyways, has undergirded, or at least attempted to, and I try to make it undergird all of what I'm trying to do within Stonegate. And then also, this is what all of these application points are going to kind of come right out of. So be about people over projects. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when I came on staff, they did an assessment. My pastors did like this pastoral assessment thing, or that, they have like 6 folks in your life who've worked for you or whatever, take a test on your behalf, answering questions on your behalf, how you're doing with different things, and which is never fun. And that's fine, but then they show you the results. That's actually never fun. And in my conversation, legitimately with them, they sat me down at a restaurant. They said, "Okay, Jimmy, hey, glad you're on the team. Want to talk you through the assessment. So here's what we found. Your assessment came back, and you're kind of a jerk. So, cool. Okay.
I can see that.
What do you say?
I said I could
Ross
see
is
that.
back there.
Yeah, you can see that? Yeah. I'm not going to pay him. It's fine. When they pressed into it, it was this. Though there was love across the board with the folks that were answering on your behalf, and there's definitely things that shine, they were focusing on the things that need correction. And they said, man, it seems like you care more about getting the ball down the court than the players who are on the team. It seems like for you, a win is we win the game, and not how is my team on the court. And they were just warning me early on. I'm so grateful they did. That is really going to damage things moving forward for you. And it's not only about getting the ball down the court, it's about caring for your team. So that's how I want us to think about this. And this really isn't just a worship leadership issue, right? It can be a player issue. It can be a vocalist issue. We have a guy on our team who really wrestles with this, like rehearsal to rehearsal. He is dealing with a lot of frustration and anger toward his fellow players, because this guy who is one of our players is a really gifted musician, and the ball down the court for him means, really tight, sonically great, rehearsal smooth, all that, and we're a volunteer team, and insert all difficulties that go with that, and so he ends up being really frustrated a lot with our fellow team members. And ends up communicating just the fact that they're not valued. And so this isn't just a leadership thing. I think it's a team thing as well. But I wanted to just start with this because I think this is just such a helpful 30,000-foot principle to understand. There's a book written by John Piper. It's called Brothers, We Are Not Professionals. Have you guys heard of it? It's a book written to pastors, and just his appeal. It's a devotional written book, and it's just his appeal to pastors not to think about the pastorate, not to think about the local church like a corporation. And I find it really helpful, and I'd recommend the book to you. But here's one quote from it that I was reading the other day. He said, "The professionalization of the ministry is a constant threat to the gospel. It is a threat to the profoundly spiritual nature of our work. I have seen it often. The love of professionalism kills a man's belief that he is sent by God to save people from hell and to make them Christ-exalting spiritual aliens in the world." And that just hits me. As a guy who came off the road where it was all about the professional aspect of things, and to come into a church setting, it's just a helpful reminder for us all that we don't exist to make awesome Sunday morning experiences. That's not why you're here. Now, Folks like Sweetwater and other organizations are going to help us and enable us to raise the bar for our Sunday mornings, absolutely. But hear me, your primary function is not to make an amazing Sunday morning experience. Your primary function as the local church is for the building up and strengthening of people to see them walk by joy and freedom in Christ. That's your goal. And so move forward with that, and that's gonna solve 90% of your problems, right? But let's have that undergird our thinking. Anything to add to that, guys?
That's awesome.
I'm paying you again. So here's the first application.
Well, I would add something. Sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent probably I grew up in a church of about 50 people in Northeast Montana, where my mom played piano and my grandma played organ, and we were an hour from a Walmart in the middle of nowhere. And then I moved to Central Kansas. We upgraded a little bit to a church of about 150, and we were on an electric drum set. That was probably the second third of my life. And then the last decade of my life, I've been in what you would consider to be a mega church atmosphere. So, and I've really dealt with that. And just to be vulnerable, like as a former music director, worship leader, in leadership over volunteers, I've had this same struggle of my pastor and leadership pushing me to be excellent and pushing the worship times to be excellent. And pushing us to rehearse for 2 hours on Thursday for Sunday morning rehearsal and run through and all of that. And it's all really, the nature of it is well-intended. It's a good thing. But to forget about people's lives, to place the excellence, the tracks, the transitions over, man, how are you doing spiritually? Yeah. It then becomes an issue and becomes a problem. And so I just affirm what you're saying.
Yeah, that's good, man.